Hi, everyone. Welcome to Get Well with Dr. Shel. I am Dr. Shalina Lalji, better known as Dr. Shel, and I know as a board-certified OBGYN and a functional medicine expert, your health is unique and deeply personal. It is a combination of genetics, lifestyle, and environment. Know this, no matter what your starting point is, you are never powerless over your health. Being on a health journey is a marathon, not a sprint. This podcast is about walking you through many different perspectives on health conditions, symptoms, and solutions that can help you get from fatigued to fabulous. My mission has always been to offer my patients and community the best of mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. You can learn more about me and my wellness center and schedule your telehealth appointment at drshel.com. We can support you no matter where you are in the world. This podcast is a powerful and simple way to carry the wisdom of thought leaders from around the world in your pocket and continue to develop your own healing journey every single day. So let the journey begin. Welcome back, everybody, to Get Well with Dr. Shel. Today, we have a wonderful filmmaker, writer, and advocate with us, Gabe Golden. Gabe attended film school and moved to Los Angeles to work on numerous productions while writing screenplays and studying theater, and developed a passion for documentary film. I personally love documentary films. Gabe has directed and produced 12 different documentary projects, 6 of which have aired on PBS affiliates, winning both a Telly and a Gold Communicator Award. Congrats, Gabe. His work has explored drought, wildfires, endangered species, soil health, climate change, and alternative medicine, my favorite. Stay tuned for a way to watch his recent film, Lighting the Path, completely free. Gabe faced a 30-year challenge with rheumatoid arthritis and has such a remarkable healing journey that I'm super excited to share with you. He and I are like two people who have gone through so much in our lives and try to really take that tragedy into transformation and try to help everybody that we meet with all the lessons that we learn through all the difficult times that we go through. So welcome, Gabe. It's so good to have you here today.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So Gabe, what we know now is that many autoimmune diseases can be reversed with lifestyle changes, which wasn't quite known even just a few years ago. So I'm curious, when you were diagnosed at the age of 14 with rheumatoid arthritis, and that's really young, and for somebody who's just getting into their teen years and having this diagnosis, which comes with a lot of different struggles and pain and so on, did they have a protocol for you around how you lived and your lifestyle changes? Or was it just a pharmacological intervention and you had to figure everything out on your own?
Yeah, it was just a pharmacological intervention. Heavy medications and immunosuppressive drugs were the only answer. I had very concerned parents. It took me to Stanford Medical Center. I had a full day of assessments, and this is 32 years ago. And at that time, they just basically at the end of the day prepared me for a pretty dark life, a very dark prognosis, likelihood that I'd be in a wheelchair within 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
That just sort of said, this is what you've got. This isn't going to go away, and be prepared for that. So it was a real identity crisis for me because at that age, I was very physically active. I played soccer and lived to snowboard and for martial arts. And so this came on very suddenly. Within a few weeks, I had pain in my feet, ankles, knees, and then it just sort of spread through my whole body. And there, I couldn't even hardly get out of bed in the morning. So from there, the immunosuppressive drugs they gave me, I actually started with gold. It was called Solganol, which is actually a derivative of gold that they used to suppress the immune system, which took about a year to actually take effect, in addition to a variety of other, anti-inflammatory, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, prednisone as well. And eventually got it to where, it was suppressed enough that I could function fairly normally. But of course, I was going in for blood work every week to make
Mhm.
sure that all those medications weren't causing major side effects on my organs.
Mhm.
So from that point, I just I went through a real identity crisis. I had to sort of redefine who I was. You have this anytime, whether you're a kid or you're an adult, and you get diagnosed with something that completely takes away your ability to function as you normally would. You have the physical pain or the
Mhm.
physical symptoms you're dealing with, and then you have a real psychological, emotional component. And as a kid, that was a big piece, where you just sort of lose your identity. You were strong and now you're weak.
Mhm.
Very few people around you understand,
Mhm.
what's going on. And so, yeah, it's not a path I would recommend. And it infuriates me now because a lot of kids that are still diagnosed, most kids that are still diagnosed, are put on some of the same medications that I was given. They actually aren't using gold, but they'll use methotrexate,
Yeah.
which is they used that on me as well 30 years ago, and they're still giving that to people.
Form
So,
of chemotherapy.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. That is, I'm sure it was a tragic time. It was a tough time. It was a dark time. Thank goodness you had supportive parents who were committed to doing everything that they could possibly do. And us being parents ourselves, it would be heartbreaking, right? To see our kids go through something like that where you feel like you have limitations. Now, you have broken all of those limitations and you have accomplished so much in your life. So let's kind of say, in functional medicine, something that I've practiced for 20 years and I know you believe in, you've done documentaries on alternative medicine and different healing powers. We believe in getting to the root underlying cause of each condition. And something compelled you to pursue the underlying cause of your rheumatoid arthritis rather than doing what, all the medical centers wanted you to do long term. And that's what 99% of humanity does, unfortunately, because perhaps they don't know that there is a different path, right? And different than taking steroids and methotrexate or gold, and really just trusting the white coat and following your medical doctor's guidelines. What prompted you to do what you did to try to get into the root cause? And how did that change the course of your rheumatoid arthritis and your life in general?
Yeah, I think I always had kind of an intuitive feeling that that living healthy was important. Diet was
Sure.
always something that was important, and I was always wanting to be active. And so I actually studied nutrition and had been a personal trainer at different points in my life. Even when I was really heavily medicated, I was able to function well enough to do those things. But what really brought about my shift was that those side effects to the medications started getting significantly worse.
Mm-hmm.
And you add up side effects with pain that was also getting worse because those medications were no longer working for me. And I realized I had to take another path. I mean, the only answers that rheumatologists had for me was to just keep increasing medications and trying these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did something that I don't recommend, which is I dumped my medications all at once and dove headfirst into alternative medicine and detoxification and sought
Mm-hmm.
out a good, alternative therapist. I would recommend seeking out a really good functional or biological medicine physician to guide you. But
Sure.
you want to, if you're on medications already, you're going to want to transition very slowly off of
Right.
those. And,
Right.
but that process, for me, it was a brutal year of incredible pain because
Mm-hmm.
the medications were still suppressing some of the symptoms. My immune system came roaring back, trying to solve the underlying cause.
Right.
But dietary changes and taking a whole new approach to my biology and my understanding of my biology really, I think, made a big difference. There are probably a variety of different causes for autoimmune conditions or why someone might suffer with Lyme disease,
Right.
who someone else who gets bit by a tick doesn't suffer from Lyme. It's all about that holistic biological totality of how you're functioning. What is your body burden and where are those burdens within each person individually? And
Mm-hmm.
how do we identify those? And that can
Yeah.
be, kind of be challenging, especially with all the information that's out there.
Right.
So yeah, I started a long journey, but within about a year, I had 90% improvement And just over a year, I was running to the gym again, not on any medications. I had, done that with a variety of treatments, antimicrobial herbs, treating the condition as though it had been an infection, because there was a lot of research on infections triggering rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune conditions. That's, I think, one component early on that I learned, but as I kept going and a couple of years went by and I had the symptoms returning, not nearly as bad, but they still haunted me, was really about the time I turned the camera on myself and started filming a variety of modalities and filming other people on their journeys. So that, to try to see what was it that really would allow you to truly heal.
Right.
And it wasn't just an infection that needed to be treated. Again, you get into leaky gut, you get into other things that are draining resources from the body.
Yeah.
And treating all of those things ultimately gives you the power to fully heal.
Absolutely. And isn't that so true? A couple of very important things that you said that I'd like to kind of point out again is there's two components to any kind of a disease process, and whether you're going to actually present with symptoms or a condition. You might even have a genetic predisposition, but it's the epigenetics, the environment, the toxicity, the microterrain of our body, the gut health, the emotional trauma, the emotional state of our body, nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances. Those are the things that determine, much like you said, whether you're going to present with this or not. Infectious etiology, all of those things contribute. Right. And so I think it's really important, to your point, to let the listeners know that just because you might have either A, predisposition, or B, something that starts presenting in your body, there are so many things about your body that can reverse engineering it and just reverse that process entirely, at least reverse the symptoms of whatever condition you might have. And just the idea of believing in that, I think, is half the battle, isn't it? The idea of believing in hope and belief that we can, as a human being, we have the potential and the power to heal way beyond medications. Like, our body is a pharmacy, right? And we can certainly heal those things. So I think you made some excellent points of how you made that transition. We'll come back to that again. What's important to realize is we are truly in an autoimmune disease epidemic right now. I think that many people don't realize that autoimmunity can attack us on so many levels. Rheumatoid arthritis is one of them, but there are other things also that they don't think about, that I work with every day at my wellness center, like hormonal imbalance, thyroid health, adrenal health. So there are many people experiencing a litany of symptoms with no real diagnosis, who continue to live in pain, and they suffer in silence. And many autoimmune diseases present separately, but are oftentimes connected, right? In fact, it's vital for those with rheumatoid arthritis, for example, to know that research shows that people with RA are much more likely to develop underactive thyroid disease, or Hashimoto's disease, which is another autoimmune type of a condition. So after talking to so many experts like you have, what do you think are the underlying causes of this epidemic of modern day autoimmune diseases like RA or Hashimoto's?
Well, I think it is complex, right? And I think that we live in an environment now where we have taken where our evolutionary ancestry was simple, and we were designed to get exercise and eat clean and fairly pure food and breathe clean air, and probably not be immersed in electromagnetic fields and 500 emails a day and environmental toxicity and heavy metals and plastics and all of these things that we are constantly taking on. And so the body burden, I think, is starting to express itself, particularly as autoimmune diseases. I mean, these are causes too, probably, for underlying causes of cancer and a variety of other things. But yeah, I think autoimmune, you can have everything from the diets that we're taking in and genetically modified foods. And then you have gluten, can aggravate and over time aggravate the digestive lining. And then you get this leaky gut syndrome, or you have environmental toxins that the body then looks at as a foreign invader and begins to attack your thyroid or attack a joint, because you've also got,
Right.
it's trying to eliminate that environmental toxin, but it's also going after it. There's collateral damage, right? Basically when you have inflammation. And so there's a variety of causes, right? I
Sure.
think that what I loved about functional medicine or my doctors who are biological medicine doctors is their version of a diagnosis is really, let's diagnose what's going on with all your systems. Just as you mentioned, let's test and look at your hormones. Let's look at all your organs. Let's look at your nervous system. Let's look at your lymphatic system. So many people don't even know what the lymphatic system is and how important that is for detoxification.
Right.
And opening up all of those organ systems and allowing them to be able to eliminate the body burden is a huge piece before you really start a regimen. Because you can, when someone's navigating this on their own, they can go end up, okay, well, I'm going to do a detox, or I'm going to take a variety of supplements that I was told. But if you have underlying things that need to be handled first, your body may have a hard time really utilizing those therapies. So whether that's organs of elimination, or I think the other really big one is the nervous system. And so many people have an overactive sympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
And no matter how many modalities you're doing and all the right things you might be doing, if your body is just too stressed, it won't heal. It just isn't in a space of healing.
Absolutely right.
So that for me was another really big component.
I think that's a great summary. And I think that, that goes to show why biologic or functional medicine, why we do what we do, right? So if somebody, as an example, comes into our office with rheumatoid arthritis or any other autoimmune condition, and by the way, a lot of neurodegenerative diseases are now being looked at as having autoimmune component. Even something like ALS, we think that there is definitely an autoimmune component to Lou Gehrig's disease. And a lot of the research that is going on right now is looking into modulating that with, say, Treg cells and other things, because we do think that there is a big impact. But as a functional medicine doctor, I completely agree with you, where you have to look at the terrain of the body and what the body is dealing with and how it is formulating that into toxic burdens. How is it impacting your brain health, your neurotransmitters, your adrenal health? You mentioned, a lot of people are in the sympathetic state, and we need to switch over to the parasympathetic, because if we don't, our body can't heal. Our body is just busy fighting or flighting constantly. And when we're in that state, we cannot heal. When we sleep, if we sleep poorly or not enough, we cannot heal. If we are full of toxins, we cannot heal. If we don't have the right nutritional balance, we cannot heal. If we don't have the right hormonal balance, whether it be your thyroid, your sex hormones, or your adrenal hormones, we cannot heal. So it really is important to look at what's happening in the heavy metal side or the mycotoxin side, or all your nutrition. Do you have leaky gut? What's happening in the stool? Do we have ova and parasites? Are we actually emptying? Are we sweating? Are we detoxifying? I just finished my 14-day detox, and I do that several times a year just to kind of reset, right? Even though people like you and I believe in healthy living, and we believe in healthy eating and exercising and meditation and yoga, we cannot control all of our environment. And like you mentioned, EMF is everywhere. It's crazy because, we just have it all around us. So that brings us into toxicity, because we can't control that. We can control a certain part of it, but we live in this environment, unfortunately, where the world has changed, and it's Earth Day today. And wouldn't it be great if we can all protect our Mother Earth and our planet? And I think people like you and I do our job, and so many others try to do our job. So it's toxicity specifically. There are so many environmental toxins that can contribute to autoimmune diseases directly, that can go on to affect your tissues and hormone levels. And most people don't take these toxins into consideration when they, maybe they make an easy mistake while trying to do something good, like drinking out of plastic water bottles, unfortunately, in hopes of staying hydrated. So yes, they're staying hydrated, but all this BPA and toxin is going into their body. Or drinking, a lot of soy milk or a lot of different kinds of milk to avoid dairy. So what are some steps in your experience and your research that you feel are tangible for our listeners to start detoxification today and to avoid those types of little pitfalls and mistakes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we have so much power,
Yes.
while I think getting a really good physician to guide you about,
Yeah.
a functional medicine doctor to help guide you, there's so much you can do. And uh, so it starts, I think, with looking at all the products that you have, that you're putting
Mhm.
on your body or that you're breathing, everything in your house, from your toothpaste to your deodorant to your cosmetics to your lotions to your cleaners, right? All of this stuff can be replaced with much less toxic or non-toxic versions. I'm a fan of the Environmental Working Group. They have a great website where you can just go and see all of their approved products.
Mhm.
That's a good place to start. Don't store things in plastic. Store them in glass containers in your
Mhm.
refrigerator, your leftovers in your refrigerator. You can sweat every day if you can, whether you can use a home sauna or whether you can just get enough movement to get exercise. I think sweating is key.
Mhm.
There are certain supplements that help with detoxification, but more than anything, just eating a really clean diet and as you said, staying very hydrated with really good water, water that's not coming out of a plastic bottle, that's really well filtered. There's a whole conversation happening around water now, that's pretty exciting because optimal water can really do a lot for us.
Mhm.
Um, I think optimizing your vitamin D level, getting out and getting some sun on a regular basis. You don't want to go get sunburned, but getting some sun exposure is really key.
Sure.
As is supplementing with vitamin D and getting your vitamin D level monitored. Um, I think earthing is a huge grounding, and earthing is a
Mhm.
really big piece. It
Yes.
shows, great studies show how dramatically it can actually reduce inflammation in the body, flooding your body with ions that work as antioxidants to the free
Mhm.
radicals that we're producing. Um, so yeah, there's so much you can do, and a lot of it can be
Sure.
free. It's just in
Yeah.
the choices that you're making or shifting around some of the habits that you do daily, can make a huge difference in the total body burden. And over
Right.
time, I think that really makes a difference. Dr. Tom O'Brien is one of my favorite guys, and I know you had him on recently,
Yes.
and he's in my film. He has a great way of an analogy of just base hits win the ball game, and he
Right.
just says don't be overwhelmed by all of these things. But pain and symptoms are information from your biology that's very
Yeah.
important, and
Yeah.
it just should be a great incentive for you to start learning about your body and about all of the potential things that are in the way of your body functioning optimally.
Right.
And so just take a step or two a week, whether that's a podcast, whether that's
Mhm.
a film, whether that's reading a book, whether that's just taking certain steps and implementing those steps,
Right.
like stuff we just mentioned, that
Yeah.
over time you just eliminate the body burden. And as you said, eventually, it seems like, oh, I've got to do 50 things to be healthy, but it's really not. It's 50 changes in your habits that by
Right.
the end of the year, your body will thank you for.
Oh, that's so well put. And you're right. I love how Dr. Tom goes over that and makes it very bite-sized, right? Because I think there is so much information out there that for the average person, it can truly be overwhelming, right? And so if they just take bite-sized pieces and implement one thing at a time, one per week, and that will then just build upon itself. And once you go to the other side, and you and I know this, you really don't want to go back to the dark side because you feel so much better. You're filled with energy and vitality, and you have better sleep, and you have better stamina and better motivation, and you have better muscle mass, and you're not keeping all those extra pounds on you because it's a lot of toxins that are stored in those fat cells. And so a lot of people that struggle even with weight gain, it's because they're storing so many toxins, and they may just be in the stress fight or flight mode constantly, which is disallowing them from getting their metabolism where they need to be. So it could be as simple as that, right? So, with all that information, that we just mentioned, especially if you're experiencing symptoms daily, that reduces one's quality of life. So, when you think about people with fibromyalgia who are in just constant pain, and you mentioned pain, just like you said, is a sign your body's actually speaking to you and saying something is awry. You need to pay attention to me. Also, like if you just Google RA or thyroid condition, you literally get over a billion results on Dr. Google, right? And, you've lived this journey. You've lived the patient journey. You've lived the journey of the filmmaker who spread this information. How do you advise anyone on this path to begin navigating all this health information and know what's optimal for health? You mentioned slow and steady wins the race. Tell us a little bit about your films. What can they learn from with some of the films that you've done? How can that really impact their lives?
Yeah, I think one of the things that helps people understand and learn or be inspired to take action, particularly around health, is stories of healing, seeing it actually happen. You can listen to a lot of different practitioners and physicians who are telling you, hey, I've seen in the clinic, this is what works and this is what the steps that you should take, but they don't necessarily have the story themselves of healing, or some physicians do. But when you see someone who's gone through it, and my film, I filmed a lot of the trial and error. So the first half of the film is a lot of stuff we tried that didn't work, and or stuff that worked a little bit, and then it was 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that authenticity and honesty of the journey, of the reality of that, I think is something that a lot of people that I've talked to who are going through it resonate with, because they feel, oh, you didn't just show the shiny answers. I saw how you went through this. And so I think that piece of it helps inspire, people to start learning. The film, in the story of the feature film, we introduce a variety of different important things for everyone to consider. And then there's 7 additional episodes where you can dive in and listen to the extended interview content on whether that's nutrition in the microbiome, or healing the nervous system, or how energy healing actually works. These things are ways to just begin to get educated. But when you are receiving that information over time, again, it can feel overwhelming, but just observe it, just allow it to sort of sink in, because this isn't going to happen overnight. You're not going to just take on all this knowledge and implement 10 changes tomorrow. I think observing and learning over time, you'll start to know what resonates for you. And again, with good guidance of a good physician and scans and blood work, and there's amazing technology now that can assist you in knowing kind of how to navigate this. But on your own, the more empowered you are as a patient, the more of that required knowledge you have, the more you can make those choices for you at the pace that really works for you as well.
Sure.
So again, there's a variety of great resources. The film offers a lot of that. I have an ebook and another book as well that from some of the physicians that I've worked with that just sort of lay out things pretty simply, the resources that you can go to. Luckily, I would have killed for this information 30 years ago, right? And anybody who's now got an autoimmune disease or any really mysterious chronic illness has tremendous resources, whether that's from wonderful, podcasts like you're doing, or films or books. There are answers. It's more about just how do you navigate that in a way that works for you. And it's a combination really of empowering yourself over time and having good guidance.
I think that's really important. And what you said about just having authenticity about it, and really talking about not just the successes, but the things that didn't work. It reminds me of, and as a lot of my audience knows, and I think as well, my husband was diagnosed with ALS 4 years ago. And, being in the field of functional medicine, ALS being a disease that we've had now for over 80 years, Lou Gehrig had ALS in 1939, and he made his famous baseball speech. And since then, surprisingly, there is no cure, there is no treatment, and for most people, there is no hope. And so when you encounter a condition like this that is so close to home, where my spouse has ALS, it just, as a functional medicine doctor, even somebody who has made it their life's mission to learn and, gather the information and go to the root cause, it was a huge hit, right? And we started trying things right away and just jumped in with both feet. I traveled all over the world, took him all over the world for different treatments, very cutting edge technologies, and did everything that, anybody would want to do. And then fast forward to 2019, I was speaking at the first of its kind. We had helped co-organize this conference called Healing ALS, where we had invited about 300 people, over 100 ALS patients and caregivers. Also, patients who have actually reversed this illness. So to date, there are 44 ALS reversals, which is just blows your mind, because one even was reversed from having a trach and fully paralyzed, could not speak, could not breathe on his own, to now eating, drinking, walking, and no trach. So this brings me to the fact that when I was on stage, yes, they wanted to hear about what I had done as a functional medicine doctor, as a caregiver, as a wife, as a physician. And I made sure that I mentioned our errors. I made sure I mentioned what we tried and didn't work. And if I had to do it all over again, what I would not do versus what I would do. And I think that is probably one of the most important things we can do as people who have gone through these things, as well as practitioners who are taking care of patients, is be authentic and be honest and be, painfully open, because that's what people really need. Is they need the honesty, and then they need what you learned from it and how you came back from that, right? And then fast forward, the same year I got breast cancer. And during that journey, same thing. When I talk to my patients, my sweet patients who have breast cancer or are breast cancer survivors, all that I learned, that I did right, that I did wrong, or wish I would have done differently or the same, that's what we share. So I'm really glad you pointed that out, because I think we have a moral responsibility to share the real stuff, not just this is how it should be and this is what I did, and make it sound like we all did everything great, because we're humans. We tried things, we were desperate. We maybe didn't do all the right things, but guess what? We learned from it. And I think it's great to teach others with that, which is what you're doing. You mentioned that you didn't do everything the best way when you were 14. How could you, right? But then you learned, and now you're spreading this information, which I respect so much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I think that's an essential point, is that the healing journey is very unique to everybody. And it's also important that the people that are on the journey, whether you're just diagnosed or you've been in this for years and you've been trying a lot of things, that, it's not a failure on your part if you're not well. That's not a failure. This is a journey, unfortunately. And you if you make the choice to at least go after the underlying causes, and you say, I'm not just going to take the medications and hope for the best. I really want to understand all of the possibilities here.
Yeah.
I think you can get to a place where the journey becomes about transformation. It's a full transformation in who you are, who you will be later. It's something that is very, it can be very spiritual as a journey, because you have been derailed from the life you thought that you were going to live. And now how do you apply meaning to that? And how do you go forward? And yes, there's so many things you can do to probably heal. But there's also, as I learned, it can be a really long journey. And then some people maybe don't get there, but they will probably be very transformed afterward, or at least later, if you do take these steps and honor your health, honor your emotions, honor the fact that we are humans and we're vulnerable in this world we're in now. Yes. And don't put it on yourself as though you have done anything wrong if you're not there. Just, there's a difference between also surrendering and giving up. Sometimes you have to surrender enough to say, I've got a little time right now. I'm not going to go on Dr. Google and try to solve my problem. Maybe I should play the guitar, or go take pictures, or go for a walk, or play with my kids, or, because the journey is still your life. It's still happening every day. And if you don't live your life, I don't think that you can necessarily get well.
Yes. Agree. I think that's a beautiful point of, transformation. And I think that you and I can both agree that when you are given these tragic, either they are diagnoses or events in your life or circumstances, that is the seed for the transformation. And it's almost like the universe, God, whatever your belief may be, is speaking to you and saying, this is your this is your lesson. We are here as a teacher. This condition, I feel very, very strongly that my cancer was the biggest teacher that I've ever encountered. And the transformation has been huge in the last 2 years. And I'm very grateful for that teacher, i.e., that teacher was named breast cancer, but I'm very grateful for that breast cancer. And not many people can literally say that. And 4 years ago, before our journey in our family, I would have never, ever said anything like that, and mean it. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And I see a lot of people who really go back to a changing point in their life and feel that may have seemed like a very dark thing, but it actually was what brightened up the rest of their life and gave them mission and purpose and meaning in their life. And it really opened them up to so many different possibilities. So we could talk about this all day, I think, but let's mention here the cutting edge information made available by organizations like healthmeans.com and the huge amount of work those two founders put into bringing the medical and scientific leaders to be in front of the patient audience. I think that, that's something that I want to share, that while difficult, of course, that I believe the journey to healing can also be very important and inspiring to others. And that's something that, that is a very, very important sort of lesson that we can leave for our listeners. So what do you feel are the most significant, if you had to just leave the audience with two of the most significant lessons of your healing journey, Gabe, what are they?
I would say that seeing your health, whether you are well or not, as about performance. It's about optimization. If you are dealing with symptoms, don't think about the disease state or I got to heal this state. Think about, how am I going to optimize my body? How can I really look at my body as a machine that we're going to optimize performance, and then the healing will probably happen on its own. And then you went from disease to wellness, but now let's see, maybe where can we go from here? Because between technology and a lot of what we know now about how to optimize, we can take that further into performance. And as we age, we can go into the later years doing things that we never thought were even possible. So I think that perspective on health is really key. If you can always be thinking about biology as something that you can optimize rather than something that's wrong and we've got to fix it. And the second thing is for me, a huge piece was emotional, work, I guess, going inside and working. I worked with somatic experiencing practitioners, which was really wonderful, and a form of body work and therapy, which allowed me to kind of access emotional, baggage that I was still carrying, that I was so surprised I had. I don't have any real significant trauma or anything, but I had enough that was still there. And I think that component and exploring that in whatever way you can, in whatever way resonates with you, can release so much that you're holding in the nervous system, and then releases a whole bunch more energy for you to heal with and to use in your life. Those were both, and a variety of ways to optimize performance. There's a variety of ways to treat the emotional conditions, but there's wonderful technology now to help with optimizing performance, and there's wonderful guides as well to help you, in your navigating your emotional journey.
Absolutely. And, emotions, as you said, is centermost, as in lots of people can do all the physical work, all of the work of, ridding toxins and balancing their nutrients and balancing their hormones, and, just get your gut health very well healed and balanced. But if you don't get rid of that emotional burden, if you will, spiritual burden, where you're just holding on to something that you don't even know of, it is not going to let you get into the parasympathetic state. You are constantly going to be feeling this baggage that's going to weigh you down. And we did a lot of that work. So I completely honor what you're saying. We did a lot of that work when both my husband and I were diagnosed, and it forces you to do it, right? Because we're so busy and we think everything's great, or we don't want to think about that. We put it away into a box and locked it up and thrown away the key. But when you are faced with chronic illnesses or with symptoms and conditions that you just absolutely have to stop in your tracks and evaluate yourself, that's when you're going to actually wake up and be forced to look at those. So I would suggest for all of our listeners, look at it without waiting for that wake up call. Really look at what's going on within and maybe do some of these exercises that Gabe is talking about to really explore what you might be holding on to and what kinds of emotional pains and trauma you might have buried deep inside that you don't want them to surface just when you don't want them, when you least want them or when you're least ready for them. This has been great. Gabe, thank you so much for all of this amazing information and experience that you shared. And before we end, I want to say that Gabe's documentary, Lighting the Path, is a full feature film with 7 bonus episodes that everybody can actually view for free. You can go to lightingthepathfilm.com. The link will actually be in the show notes for you to check out. Gabe, is there anything that you want to further add about your film before we end?
Oh, thank you. No, I really appreciate and am grateful for the opportunity to be here, to share it. And if people want to even email me, they can do so when they receive the emails, when they register for the film. They'll get those, the opportunity to email me back. I don't mind answering questions. I like hearing people's stories.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for offering to do that for our audience. I think you'll see a lot of people will actually take you up on it because you do have a wonderful story that you can share. So great to see you. Great to have you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next time. Thank you so much for making time for today's podcast with Get Well with Dr. Shel. I know that this conversation and education can help you to create your best life possible on every level. So definitely tune in to hear the newest expert and learn the latest protocols to support your best health journey. You can learn more about me and my wellness center at drshel.com, drshel.com, and I hope that you will make time to come visit us in the Houston area to take a deep dive on self-care. My team and I are completely devoted to helping you live a better life from this moment forward. The best days of your life are ahead of you, I promise. This podcast is a powerful and simple way to carry the wisdom of thought leaders from around the world in your pocket and continue to develop your own healing journey every single day. So let the journey begin.